You know, for decades, if you thought about computer chips, one name came to mind: Intel. Their biggest rival, AMD, was, well, they were always kind of the underdog. But wow, over the last 5 years, that entire story has been flipped on its head. So today, we're going to dig into one of the biggest, most fascinating turnarounds in the history of tech.
Just look at this, seriously. On one side, you have AMD's stock, which has just skyrocketed an absolutely incredible 134% in 5 years. And on the other side, during that exact same time, Intel stock has dropped by over 25%. I mean, you don't have to be a market analyst to see what's going on here. These two are heading in completely opposite directions.
So how is this even possible, right? They're in the same business, they're facing the same market. What on earth happened that caused such a massive, seismic shift? Well, that is the central mystery we're unpacking right now.
All right, first things first, let's put those stock charts into some real perspective.
And this context is so important. This wasn't just Intel struggling against AMD. They were struggling against pretty much the whole market. The NASDAQ, which is like the benchmark for tech stocks, boomed over 81% in that same period. So Intel's decline happened while the rest of tech was having a massive party, which just makes their drop look even worse.
Okay, so let's get into the why. To really understand what happened, you have to know that it all boils down to one single fundamental choice they each made decades ago. How do you actually make a computer chip?
And right here, this table, this lays it all out. Intel is what's called an IDM, an integrated device manufacturer. Basically, they design their chips and they build them in their own massively expensive factories. AMD, they're fabless. They only design the chips. Then they pay a partner, like the manufacturing giant TSMC, to actually build them for them. Honestly, this one difference, it explains almost everything.
Okay, so to really get what Intel does, think of it like this. They're a farm-to-table restaurant. They own the farm, they grow the vegetables, they raise the cattle, and they cook the meal in their own kitchen. They control every single step. That's Intel, total control, from the raw silicon to the final chip.
Now AMD, they're the total opposite. Think of them like a world-famous architect. They dream up these incredible, brilliant blueprints for a skyscraper. But they hire the absolute best construction company in the world to actually build it. And what that does is it frees them up to pour all their time, money, and brainpower into just one thing: designing the best building possible. So that's the strategy. But how does it actually play out on the bottom line? Well, let's look at the numbers, because, wow, they are truly staggering.
Okay, look at this. Back in 2019, Intel was a behemoth, hauling in over $71 billion. Fast forward to today, that number has shrunk by 26%. Now, flip over to AMD, they started as the little guy, under $7 billion. But in that exact same time frame, their revenue just exploded by 283%. It's a complete reversal.
And it's not just about sales. It's about what you actually keep, your profit. This is wild. For every dollar in sales AMD made, they pocketed over 6 cents in profit. Pretty good? Intel? For every dollar that came in the door, they were losing more than 35 cents. That's what happens when you have these massive, crazy expensive factories to run and your sales are dropping. Just let that number sink in. Plus 283%. That's the explosive power of being lean, being focused, and letting the best manufacturers in the world do the heavy lifting for you. And then, there's the other side of the coin, a 26% decline. That's the huge risk you take when you own the factories. If you stumble, if your manufacturing process falls behind, the whole ship starts to take on water.
So you might be thinking, what about the future? What about research and development? They both spend a ton. But here's the kicker. Intel spent a jaw-dropping $16.5 billion. But that money had to be split between designing new chips and inventing new ways to build them in their factories. AMD spent a much leaner $6.5 billion, but every single dollar of that went straight into one thing: designing better chips.
So that's the story of the last 5 years. But what about the next 5? Because believe me, neither of these giants is just sitting still. They're making huge bets on the future. Intel's big play is something they're calling IDM 2.0. What does that mean? They're basically doubling down on their factories. Instead of just seeing them as a cost center, they want to turn them into a profit machine by building chips for other companies. We're talking Amazon, Microsoft, maybe even AMD someday. It's a classic case of if you can't beat them, build for them.
And AMD, they're doing the exact opposite. They're doubling down on what got them here: pure, brilliant design. They're leading the way with this chiplet strategy. Instead of trying to make one single gigantic complex chip, which is really hard to do perfectly, they design smaller, specialized chiplets and then basically glue them together. It's a super clever approach, it's cheaper, more efficient, and the result is just incredibly powerful.
So here we are. After one of the most dramatic turnarounds we've ever seen in tech, we're at the start of a whole new chapter. The battle lines are drawn, the bets are on the table, and the chip war is far from over.
The last 5 years, no question, belong to the designer, AMD. Their focus and flexibility launched them into the stratosphere. But now, the manufacturer, Intel, is fighting back with a totally new game plan. So the big question is, will Intel's massive gamble to build chips for the whole world actually pay off? Or will AMD's laser-focused, innovative design strategy keep them at the top? I mean, who do you think is going to own the next 5 years?